Man there trying to stop Drogba getting himself into further trouble.
Oh, it's not a bad ball for Pele on the right side. It's Carlos Alberto. And what a great goal that was! Carlos Alberto.
Maradona just walked away from Huddle then. Cardano. Maradona! They're appealing for offside. The ball came back off the foot of Steve Hodge. And Maradona gives Argentina the lead. The England players protesting to the referee.
De halve finale komen. Ik heb opeens zo'n gevoel dat we in de halve finale gaan komen. Met het balbezit voor Frank de Boer. Frank de Boer speelt de bal. Heel goed naar Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp neemt de bal aan. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Oh! Frank de Boer speelt de bal naar Dennis Bergkamp. Die neemt de bal feilloos aan. En die schiet de bal erin.
So hello and welcome back to the Scoreless Thriller podcast. I'm Alex and I'm joined as always by Leon. Leon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hi.
And we're delighted to be joined by James and David from the Field of Screens, the sports movie review podcast. Welcome to the podcast today, James and David.
Hello.
Hello there.
We're also delighted to be recording on what will be known in future years as SuperLeague Monday.
Oh yeah, of course.
Day to remember.
Yeah.
So
the day football died, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. How apt that we're discussing the beautiful underdog story of a group of administrators who just wanted the world of football to be governed by the same rules and regulations.
It's a real passion story, isn't it?
In 10 years, people will be saying, "Who are they? Who are they?"
So before we get too far into our main topic for today, which is the 2014 film United Passions, I wanted to ask you, James and David, a bit about, like, you've obviously covered a lot of sports movie films on your podcast, but what do you think is like some of the things that actually make a good sports movie, as opposed to like the monstrosity that I subjected you to this week?
Well, we've seen some monstrosities, I think, as well. So I don't know. I think one of the things James and I think is very important is a good montage.
We love a montage.
You'll have a little montage, a little bit of learning a skill or getting in shape. You know, that's always a good little device. We like rating them on those, don't we, James? What about you? What's your favorite?
To be fair, we watched this film with my flatmate, and she has no interest in football, but she did enjoy the 2-minute montage, which was Sepp Blatter traveling the world, doing handshakes to a background of some Brazilian football.
Yeah. I mean, it was some lovely tunes, very engaging.
Oh, it was one of the high points of an otherwise fairly low movie, I'd say.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think one of the things we found with a lot of our films is we keep on asking ourselves, is this actually a sports film after we've already watched it? Like, we watched Any Given Sunday, which actually has absolutely tons of American football in it. Yeah. But then afterwards we're like, is this really a sports film, or is it just using sports to like totally like critique capitalism and stuff like that? And, and you know, we just keep on getting a bit existential about them, really. But I don't know, we've generally enjoyed watching them, haven't we? Yeah,
definitely. I think I'd agree with James there. It's another one was, a lot of people would say Field of Dreams is one of their favorite sports movies, which is hence why we use the name, but that is not a sports movie, really. I mean, there's sport in it, but that's what you find with a lot of these movies. So I don't know, I think it's open for interpretation.
It is. We've had some suggested, and we've had to debate, does this count as what was the one that we wanted?
Billy Elliot.
Billy Elliot.
Classic.
Is dance a sport?
Well, I guess it can be.
Alex.
Yeah, I think if it was like he was trying to get to the Olympics, to win the gold medal in dance, I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's a sports movie, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
What? It's not just about professionalism, though, right? Like, you can have sports without going to the Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. True. It doesn't have to be like some sort of organized tournament. We're doing the Karate Kid 2 this week in our podcast, and it's like there's no tournament in that. You know, so you've got to. It is difficult, but we just go on gut feeling, and I think our guts decided that we couldn't handle Billy Elliot. So
skip that one. Skip that one.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could cover the Queen's Gambit, right? If it's chess, if you count chess as a sport.
I mean, I think the debate, the philosophical debate is about chess being a sport or not, right?
Yeah.
Because if you agree to that, then Queen's Gambit definitely is. Like,
well, I guess darts is a sport. What's the difference?
I guess a sport is anything played competitively. You know, not necessarily professionally, but competitively. So, you know, why not? I really like the Queen's Gambit actually, so I don't mind watching it again.
So then you would also say that that actually professional computer gaming
esports
would be a sport.
Yeah, I think so.
Like esports, that's accepted.
I think so. Yeah. Is there any esports movies? There probably is one, isn't there?
I bet you there's some
Korean ones
or something.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Alex just made a beautiful montage of his Madden football gaming.
Oh, nice.
It's not quite a movie length. I think there might be an esports. I think there was like a documentary about like a League of Legends team or something, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, also, what thing that's also always kind of I've thought about, like, why do you think some sports are much better to be covered as films as opposed to others? Because I think generally the consensus is that football films shit. American football or something like that, it's a bit easier. Or boxing, I think, is the best example of usually is quite good.
Yeah, we found boxing's good. Basketball really lends itself well to being filmed. I think American sports, in a way, are really good for film because they're often a bit more stop-start by their nature. Because, you know, they have like American football, you know, they have like it's first down, then there's a set various plays, and the plays last a little bit of time, so it's quite easy to film it. Whereas football is like an organic 45 minutes of action, and it's hard to jump in and out of it so much, I think. But
I think it's quite easy to use a sport like a basketball game or a season or whatever to, you know, to be used as a foil for a bigger purpose or a bigger story. So as you're going along, you can play out certain parts of a story alongside a basketball season or whatever. There's highs and lows. It just lends itself to the natural plot of a movie, really. But as James says as well, with something we discussed, basketball was one that really cuts well for movies because you can really cut different angles together. It's quite hard to tell that it's not a flowing game, whereas with football, such as we did goal last week, you know, it's quite obvious when things have been cut together.
But we really enjoyed goal more than we thought we would.
It was a bit of a nostalgia.
People are really
trip.
rude about goal, but I think I haven't seen it since I was young. But I think
nor had I. I hadn't seen it for like 15 years.
It's better than I remembered it, definitely. Yeah. And I'm a Newcastle fan anyway, so I just had this added nostalgia of, you know, remembering Nobby Solano and Kieran Dyer and Lauren Robert playing for Newcastle. You know, the glory days as well.
What has been, so if you were to say, like, what has been the best and the worst movies that you've covered so far, what would be your personal favorites?
I think the best for me was the Mighty Ducks. Absolutely loved it. I was so surprised how good it was. I really enjoyed it.
We really enjoyed Le Mans 66 as well, didn't we?
Yeah, that was great.
That was really cracking. The worst, Mighty Ducks 2.
Yeah.
Always the sequel.
Or Safety was pretty bad. That was a 2020 movie that we did. Came out back in the last year.
Oh, that's like a Disney one, right?
Oh man, it's so boring.
The trailer is quite good and quite exciting, and the movie is nothing like that. So yeah.
We were really heartbroken with Mighty Ducks 2, weren't we?
Yeah, we were.
Because I'd never seen the original, and actually you hadn't either, had you, David?
As it happens, I don't think I had. No.
And we watched it, and it like really took me by surprise because I thought it was really good fun, and then we watched the sequel, and it was just shit. Yeah.
But we got hopes for Mighty Ducks 3 to swing.
Yeah, we're doing that.
It's just a dialect.
That is the rule. It always bounces back up.
End up on the top again.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
But then on this scale, then, you know, where would you place today's movie? Where's United?
Where's United Passions?
At the bottom.
I mean, this is the worst. This is the worst one I've seen. Yeah, definitely.
I unashamedly had quite a bit of fun watching it.
Oh, yeah, I think there's some fun to be had.
I think I'm one of those people who do really enjoy bad movies sometimes. Like my favorite film is The Room, and
but do you think it has like the quality of The Room? Because
No,
I don't even
not...
think it's that hilarious in its, you know, bad cinematography or anything or storytelling.
No, but it's just the dialogue the whole way through is like the lines.
I mean, you sort of have to hate watch this film a bit, don't you? And it is entertaining, especially knowing how it all turned out for Sepp Blatter, like about a month after the film came out.
Yeah,
I 100% agree.
Yeah,
I think if it was 20 minutes shorter, then I would have. But it is just a bit too long. And
we say that almost every week.
Yeah.
Every film we watch, we're like, well, it could have been 20 minutes shorter.
Yeah, I don't think it made it to the it's so bad it's good situation for me. This one.
No, right?
It's bad. It's bad.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in that really unfortunate, uncanny valley.
Yes,
but good to have seen it.
Good to have seen it. I mean, okay, so because I think we have to take it apart a bit, like the whole thing, because it starts kind of with this founding fathers myth of FIFA, right?
Yeah, if you were to give a synopsis of United Passions, like I don't know where I would even start. I think that's the issue. Like it's just like here's 100 years of history.
I mean, at the beginning of the history, right? I mean, like that's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah,
it's like British bad guys because they don't want to join, and then the Europeans who are good because they've got this beautiful vision of the same regulations for football worldwide.
We've literally been arguing about the same things for 100 years. Eh?
I mean, they didn't take any. They didn't miss any opportunity to have a go at England in it. Did they?
No, they didn't.
they really did. But I sort of felt like they came off really badly for it. Like they're all, straight off the bat, it's like they're sort of reveling in how much it's going to piss England off if they all unite, and they're like, yeah, that'll teach them, and they're like, and then it goes by for like 20 years and no one's given a shit at all.
So they interrupt poor Uruguay's gold medal,
heckling the gold medalists.
Yeah,
but we are the good guys, even because we got some press on this.
That was so patronizing, but they didn't actually. Like the press actually denied to cover this to a large degree.
Yeah.
So it was even in vain. It was just being rude to Uruguay.
Yeah. I did wonder why Uruguay were wearing their cricket whites.
Yeah.
I think they back in the day, everyone wore cricket whites. I think.
That was very odd, wasn't it? And when they were doing the training on the boat, on the ocean liner on the way over to the World Cup, they're all doing it with like a cricket jumper tied around their neck, and it was just, oh man, hilarious.
But I don't quite follow. I'm not like a FIFA historian, and nor do I ever really want to be. But I don't quite follow this sort of like dichotomy against the British when the second president of FIFA was English. So
yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess it was that they probably did get a reaction, as is shown in the movie, when they approached the FA and were basically told, we don't need you. We can run our game just fine. Thanks very much. It kind of reminded me of the attitude of, somebody from South London being considered a foreigner if they played for a North London side. It's like, we're never going to need to go beyond our borders, are we? Because we're England.
We invented the game.
Yeah. So I don't really mind if they did, sort of exclude England a little bit after getting that kind of reaction. But it was that person that they talk to who just sort of ignores them, Lord Kinnaird. Have you guys seen him in anything else? Not the actor, I mean the character.
No.
Because
was it in that
the Netflix series, The English Game.
Oh, have you watched that?
I've watched the whole thing.
It's supposed to be almost as bad as United Passions.
No way. No. Whoever said that has not seen United Passions. Okay? Because there's actually some interesting stuff in there, like the history of the beginnings of the FA Cup and the first professional footballers. But Lord Kinnaird is one of the main characters because he was like maybe not a founding member, but he won the FA Cup 5 times and he was on the FA board, and then he became FA president. And he really was like genuinely like the Ronaldo of his day in terms of like fame. He was the one that people knew about. So it's quite interesting just seeing him in this again, popping up again, because they portray him quite favourably in the English game and probably less favourably in United Passions.
Not so favourably in United Passions.
Yeah.
But I don't really. So then, okay. So they've made this committee.
Yeah.
You know, we are going to govern the game by the same rules and regulations, and this is how it's going to go. But then it's sort of like the timeline of the film just seems to just want to jump from set piece to set piece, and it's like not really hard to follow where they're actually
Imagine all the stuff they cut out of this film. Like those were the exciting bits that they could find in FIFA's history. The bits where someone's going, how's the deal with Coca-Cola, guys?
Yeah,
we can't lose that. That's a killer line. We need to know how the Coca-Cola deal's doing.
Yeah, and we need to see a bunch of school kids running off the pitch in Africa to go and get their Coca-Cola, so that they can rehydrate. That was a weird little bit as well.
So the whole film is also interspersed with this like 2-minute clips of some kids playing football.
Yeah.
And it was just
sort of the Earth location.
Yeah, so like you're supposed to, I don't know.
The United Colours of Benetton match they're having. Like it's like they were like you could just see the FIFA committee. So we've got to have every single nationality and ethnicity, represented in this because we want to be as inclusive as possible. Because obviously FIFA's always and they go and a girl.
Yeah, that was the last one on the list.
And one girl.
Yeah,
and then we're going to make out like we really care about women's football in this film. I thought that really irritated me. How Sepp Blatter was trying to come off like some sort of pioneer of women's football, like
general pioneer of rights in football and universal cooperation and whatnot. It was.
Yeah, the film is quite interesting in how it tries to deal with sort of politics. Like I think. Like Jules Rimet comes across as like very like woke and self-aware. He's like, will people worry about us having this World Cup in Uruguay when the Great Depression is coming? And he's and he's painted as a sort of like this very like future kind of visionary, and like his daughter is always there to rebuke the racist Englishman who appears.
By the way, do we know whether that's actually factually correct? Was she traveling around with him all the time? Because I didn't get to fact check this.
I assumed she did.
I mean, I googled her because I wanted to work out why she had an English accent despite being French. Apparently, no mention of her. I can't find her. I don't even know if she really exists. So
she does. I did read something that she did travel with him to the 1930 World Cup. Like that, and that was
nice. Okay,
all I got.
Which is kind of a low bar, right?
She did exist. Yeah.
That's all we know.
That's all we know.
Well, let's take their word for it. FIFA have always been honest in the past, so
it seemed pretty straight up. This film. It seemed really objective. This film, so I'm sure. Yeah. What did you guys think? You mentioning about Uruguay in the World Cup. Like, I found it really weird. There's that scene with Jules Rimet, and he's talking to that chap from Uruguay. I can't even remember who he was meant to be, and he's like, yeah, don't worry, we'll give you all the money for it, we'll pay for everyone to come over. And that's in like 1925. Then it cuts to 1928 and they go, and the winner of the first World Cup is Uruguay.
Yeah, I'll be shocked.
And then it goes to that man who had the conversation earlier about having the money. He's like, an approving smile.
Might as well have just handed him a big bag with a dollar sign on it.
I know, it's like, so
it was actually a bit worse than that, because they had that meeting with the Uruguay guy where he's like saying, oh yeah, I've got this idea for a tournament and we'll pay for it and we'll sort it out. And then Jules Rimet pitched the idea to, I'm guessing, a FIFA committee or something. And he said, the host, yet to be decided.
Yeah,
you've decided, mate.
I know. After ensuring that all their meals and hotels would be picked up as well. Yeah. It's like, so you will pay for it all.
There's a lot of lines in there which are very deliberately placed, and he's like, he asks the Uruguayan, will you ensure that all the referees are not paid for and that we'll have fair competition?
Yeah. I'm sure that was his main concern. Yeah,
that was the greatest concern.
Really insist on fair play. Yeah, definitely.
Oh man.
But I was always wondering, did the people, and especially FIFA, did they think that this would go well with the audience afterwards? Like, did they actually think that the public would buy this?
That's what I've seen it pitched as, like a PR movie. I think it's a terrible PR movie. I don't think it makes FIFA look good at all.
And they had some memes, right? Like you could tell that like the cameras weren't the worst ever, and they had some ideas of how to portray the story, but it was just so blatantly a propaganda thing that I was wondering, did they actually think that this would work?
I think they did. I mean, it holds the record for the lowest box office return in US history. Yeah. I think it's like less than $1,000
somewhere. It was
one cinema returned $9. I mean, it's incredible.
But I do wonder, like, after this film was all done, and like then they showed it to Sepp Blatter, and like all the committee high ups in FIFA were like sat down in a room to watch it, and they're like, yes, this is the story that we want to tell.
I was the good guy.
Yeah. I don't remember it exactly as this film depicts it, but I like this angle.
Yeah. I think he'll just remember like the last scene, Sepp Blatter, because he's sort of painted as some kind of hero seeing off a rebellion.
Yeah, and it's like the grand reformer who's everyone's trying to undermine.
Yeah,
really, all ardently fighting against corruption amongst the peers and everything. It's insane.
Yeah, I just didn't understand. I think it was a movie that, if you didn't know the history of the World Cup or football, there was loads of things that they just barely mentioned that would be really hard to know what they were talking about. There's like a little. There was like a little mention to England losing to the USA in 1950. And like,
I don't understand why they didn't show that bit, and then they're like talking about it a few days later.
Exactly, that's like a heroic bit of like an underdog. This, really tiny team. It was like a Haitian guy playing for the USA, semi-professional. Well, not even semi-professionals, amateurs, beating this great English side. Didn't even talk about it. Missed a chance to have a dig at England there. So,
did you notice they really didn't want to even acknowledge that England won the World Cup in 1966 because they go around like a few various World Cups, don't they? And like the 1966 ones, all the highlights are watched through a shop window with all these people just like cheering outside. And then
I was fine with this. I have to say.
And then it goes on to like Brazil 1970, and there's all this real footage of it. And I was like, oh, come on, guys. Give us a chance in this film a little bit.
But I think with the 66 World Cup, it has the scene before where Sir Stanley Rouse, like the former FIFA president, and he's an asshole to Havelange. Like he's like, it's Sir Stanley to you, I think you'll find. And he's like, the next World Cup is in England and we will win it. And he's like, as the viewer, like, he's so arrogant, and then England do win it.
But he was right,
Didn't he say like, sure they will?
Did
something? I think he said,
I thought it was a bit weird they didn't use like bits of like famous commentary as well. I mean, they think It's All Over It Is Now is like would have been perfect for a little bit of color.
I think they just didn't want to pay for the license on it.
Yeah, but I would have thought they must own it, but maybe not.
Yeah, but I completely agree. Like, dude, with the whistles and the belts, if you actually make it a propaganda piece, then work it. Like, use all the drama and everything you have, and throw it at the viewer. At least you get something out of it, right? Like that's what I was hoping for. But it's just,
I would never have thought if somebody had said, "Hey, there's this movie, and it's basically the history of the World Cup, and we go through all of the World Cups, and you see all the great moments." I would never have thought it could be so boring. Quite frankly,
it is a shame, isn't it?
Maybe it is like the FIFA administrators find like the Coca-Cola deals, or like signing a deal for a new World Cup ball. Maybe that is the most exciting part of football to them. So I'm going to ask you like for your favorite bits of the film in a bit, but one of my favorite bits was prepare for this.
Hang on. I have to write one down. Hang on.
was in the 1950 World Cup, and you have this famous game between Uruguay and Brazil at the Maracanã with 200,000 people, and Jules Rimet has to present the World Cup, and the score is like, you can kind of see from the footage that it's 1-1, and he's going to go down the stairs and out onto the field to bring the cup down, and he's like he's walking, and he's coming into the light, but he hears like complete silence. And obviously, as a viewer, if you know like your football, you know that Uruguay scored, and then like Brazil, there was like complete anguish and stuff like this. But I was just like wondering like how, like Uruguay scored in the 79th minute, like how slow was Jules Rimet walking?
I mean, he didn't look in the best shape, but it looked like a long
or 20 minutes down these stairs that by the time he came out, he hadn't quite realized it was, like,
it was
so confused. And it's like a Uruguay player sort of like kind of anxiously kind of comes over to him to try and get the World Cup off him, and he's like,
I know.
You won.
He seems shell-shocked. Like,
he definitely looked like he had money on Brazil, didn't he?
Yeah. I had a couple of things about that. I thought, first of all, when he's like walking through the tunnel towards the light, I was genuinely thinking, Christ, did Jules Rimet die at the World Cup final?
The symbolism was insane.
Like, I really thought they were going to say like he died in the tunnel.
He ascended to football heaven.
Yeah, he came back as football Jesus.
The trophy out of his cold dead hands and hand it to you. But yeah, I think the other bit was just like that result. I know it was heartbreaking for Brazil as they're hosting a World Cup, and you know there's quite a lot of presumptuous commentary about they go 1-0 up quite early on, and it's like, hey, it's going to be Brazil's cup. It's like, well, settle down, there's a long way to go yet. But yeah, I just thought they painted that loss for Brazil like more tragically than when they're talking about the death match in 1942, where a load of prisoners of war were actually killed, or reportedly killed after beating German soldiers. I just thought it was a strange choice to focus more on the tragedy of that than on this real event that was genuinely tragic.
Yeah, it was weird, that. Very weird.
Yeah,
I'm not
I think
certain that death match happened how they were making out, because we looked into that, didn't we? Because we watched Escape to Victory, you know, World War II, Sylvester Stallone football film, and I think, you know, because we read up about the death match, and I think it had been like the legend of it had been slightly distorted, hadn't it?
Yeah, I think it's contentious about whether actually like it happened as people
definitely
as,
there was,
you know, it's kind of
some kind of match, but how it went they're not 100% sure.
Yeah, I don't think it was like, you know, the final whistle blew and then they lined them up and shot them or something, which is sort of how they make it out in this film, you know, because they tried to make it seem really you know, obviously that would be terrible, but I feel like they were playing a bit fast and loose with it, and it's kind of a nasty thing.
It's a bit grim that they kind of use it to be like, oh, the FIFA politics of Rimet was great. Also, how, you know, they deal with the 34 World Cup, how Rimet was shocked that Mussolini used the 1934 World Cup in Italy to further his fascism, and he makes it very clear that he is not a fan of fascism. Not actually aligned to people's values.
Very strong stance.
I mean, Italy take a bit of a beating in this as well, because they keep referring to the fact they stole the World Cup twice. You know, it's like a bit harsh, but yeah. I'm not sure of the legitimacy of the early World Cups, really.
No.
There's like that 1951 I was just reading up. Uruguay played one group game to get through their group, and others were playing 3 group games to get through their group.
Really? I didn't know
there
that.
were these misweighted groups because teams had pulled out and stuff. So very strange setup of the tournament.
Yeah, I think if you look through like any World Cup before, like maybe up to like 1982, the hosts will at least make the semi-final and or win it. It's kind of given.
Just going back to what you were saying earlier, David, about Jules Rimet walking out of the tunnel towards the light.
It's like St. Paul.
When he died,
Did anyone else think, when he actually did die, there's no way that Gerard Depardieu would fit in that coffin? It's like, you know, like they show his funeral with his coffin getting lowered down, and I'm like, have you gone on a diet before the end or something?
It's like a kid's coffin.
It's the size of a house in it. There's no way they'd have to really. There's no way they got him in that. No way at all.
I didn't think that actually, James, but that's why I always have you with me to point those things out.
It's the vital kind of analysis that I bring.
Yeah, very.
What about James? What about you, James? What part of the movie was the least? Was there any sort of shining light bit where like, actually slightly resembles the film?
No. I feel like
What?
I think there's a few bits of casting in it that I found a little bit weird. Like Sam Neill playing Havelange, he's sort of made out to be all right, isn't he, at the beginning? Then then he's made out to like totally throw poor defenseless Sepp Blatter like under the bus.
To those evil journalists.
But isn't that an interesting character arc? Like once in this movie, some personal development.
I mean, oh my goodness, and some bits that happen, like Sepp Blatter, like making the point of, I paid all the FIFA employees out of my own personal money.
Oh yeah.
I thought, I wonder if if he did that, that's great. But it's like, it just goes out of its way so much to make him look good.
They didn't really ask the question, how did you have that much
Yeah.
money?
That was my question. And then like 2 scenes later, you see like these people swimming in swimming pools and like nice hotels and whatnot. It's like, couldn't been that bad.
No.
Yeah, I mean, Havelange's place is incredible. Before he hands over, like when he's meeting up with Sepp Blatter and he's saying, "Oh, I want you to succeed me," but like his house is just like this absolutely beautiful place, and it doesn't look like there was a shortage of money sloshing around. Even
sorry, can we talk about that Sabutio scene?
I mean, just horrendous. I actually rewound it to check what I was watching, because that was almost the point where I had to call it a day. They don't know how to play Sabutio. I was furious.
So listen, for those not aware, there's a scene where Havelange is in his house and he's chatting to Sepp Blatter about something boring, I don't know, Coca-Cola sponsorships or something, and his nephew or something is playing Sabutio, and he comes along and just picks up the ball, and then his nephew's like, "That's cheating," and he's like, cheating, that's a strange way. What if I was God? And then
that's
weird.
Mean,
that is strange, isn't it? They made a number of choices like that in this, though. Just bits that they included where you're like, I thought you're trying to make yourselves look good. Like that's a weird thing to.
But what are they trying to signify, that like he'd gotten too big for his boots or what?
Yeah,
he's saying like, well, it's cheating if you get caught or something, wasn't he? Like, we make the rules, so it's, I could change the rules.
Afterwards, didn't he point out like to Sepp Blatter this little thing where he wrote like Argentina on? And then maybe that he made the ultimate decision that that's where the next World Cup is going to be. Because that's how I understood it. Because then he tears it apart, and then you see like the whole thing coming down, in the stadium. But I don't know.
He did.
I had no idea.
Yeah, he was going to the old paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but it was such a weird scene.
Yeah, I was distracted by the fact the kid didn't flick the player; he flicked the ball. So I was furious with that.
I missed that. He flicked the ball.
Yeah, he just flicks the ball with his finger. Outrageous. Yeah,
that's one of the biggest crimes
in the play.
Oh God!
But is it the thing where you flip the legs or where you tip the hat?
You're German. Head. You don't.
Yeah, no, because in Germany we have got like this tip Fußball where you tip the head and then you.
Yeah,
kick it.
I've seen that one as well. We used to have that as well. I think that was called like pro soccer or something over here. I don't quite remember. I remember the game. Yeah, but no, Sabutio is where you flick the man.
You flick the man into the ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems more savage.
What did you guys think of that New Year's Eve party in the Alps?
I love the dancing. The dancing.
So natural. Such an organic way of celebrating Christmas. That's what we always do. Well, he's on a very mysterious call, but no, everyone just.
I just didn't understand why you'd have a scene with a bunch of people dancing, but play different music over the top of it to the music that the people are dancing to. It's like they're playing this really moody.
But it was just to convey the disconnect between him, on the call, and them dancing in the background. Right, they're in a completely alternate universe there.
Yeah.
While he's working hard to keep football alive. That's
It was so weird.
Yeah. Yeah,
But can either of you like remember what he was like, who he was on the phone with at the time or something? Was it?
No idea.
Probably a sponsor. Or
Getting some bibs for somewhere.
Yeah.
He was probably just trying to get more votes, because that seemed to be what he'd spent quite a lot of his time doing.
Played the long game, didn't he?
He did. I mean, it was the sensible strategy, wasn't it, to go after like the African delegates and the places that had been underrepresented.
Who conveniently got a World Cup shortly after Sepp Blatter became FIFA president. What a coincidence.
The worst World Cup.
Yeah, but even during that Christmas party, the setting, it was a really beautiful house, right? Like very sophisticated, everything. So you have this continuous flow of information that FIFA is struggling so much. They don't have any money, but then whenever you're actually at the locations where everyone is at, it's like high life, beautiful things, swimming pools, somewhere up in the mountains, some residents.
Yeah, it's hard to give the viewer a sense of danger that the organization is like running out of money. When you have has this like sky
building style lair
overlooking
like, guys, we've nearly run out of champagne back here. Oh god.
Okay, so let's try and listener, if it sounds like we're sort of jumping all over the place with the plot, I think
there isn't
probably
a plot.
There is no plot. It's this line, but so Haviland just sort of like set Blatter up to be his successor, and then Sepp Blatter comes through, but then there's like a leak, or like there's corruption, and then he's got to be the person who's got to weed out this corruption in the organization. But it's kind of like the framing of like, oh, there's this corruption which is being going on before with Haviland and stuff, and then like Haviland is like, oh, we failed you by having this corruption in the organization. It's kind of weird, right? It's like,
also, because he was in the organization for ages before too, right? Like, this couldn't be a surprise to him that suddenly now there's some bad men somewhere,
he was second in command, right?
Exactly, yeah. I think Sepp Blatter looking for the source of the corruption is a bit like Matt Damon in The Departed looking for the mole when he isn't the mole. Like, I think the journalist that sort of confronts him sort of says, doesn't he? He's like, come on, you were second in command. You knew of this.
Do you think the journalist in the film that's a direct representative of Andrew Jennings and the book Foul, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah,
because he famously, was one of the few people to sort of push on it for a number of years. So that's what my feeling was.
Yeah, because it's interesting how like there's not really like this is such a sort of major part of the plot is him dealing with how this book coming out, and it's like, won't you defend your name? And he's like, well, there's some leaks everywhere, and he's trying to deal with it.
Every organization has its rotten apples, doesn't it? It's just one rotten apple. Nothing wrong with the tree.
Lovely approach, President of an organization. Well, bad happens everywhere. Can't do shit.
We can't all be perfect, can we?
Oh, no.
At least I've got nice Christmases.
But I did find it kind of interesting how like João Haviland was painted as like he started off good but ended up being super corrupt and stuff. Like
but then they tried to get him back to being like a good guy again when he gives Sepp a little bit of advice, like he goes to his old mentor for a bit of advice about how to deal with things. And I just thought, this just looks like the moment Sepp Blatter realized he had to break all the rules to be corrupt. He's like, doesn't look like he's getting a bit of good advice. It looks like he's finding out how to bend the rules.
Yeah, he's like, I need to win this re-election thing. And people are trying. I have 8 votes. I need to find the undecided and convince them.
Yeah. And he was just like, oh, they'll be convinced. Like, Christ, are you going to pay him off or kill him? I'm not quite sure.
But also the point is that like, if they want to bring him down, he's able to bring them all down with him as well. And like, this is supposed to be like, so he's supposed to be a hero of our film, but he's just been like kind of holding the organization hostage and like as in his position. I feel weird how like this sort of crescendo of the film is our hero being like I have to play by the rules of the game and be as corrupt as the rest.
Yeah, I mean, it was just
he's just getting his excuses in early, isn't he? Just, you know, well, look, I had to do it, guys. You know,
yeah.
You know, he was just obviously saw what was coming around the corner in real life, I think.
I'm not sure there was any real aim to this film, to be honest. I think it was literally just a vanity project. And they thought, hey, we've got some, you know, FIFA's supposed to be like not non-profit organization.
Yeah.
But by that they mean, hey, let's spend all our money. So that, you know, they just saw a chance to make a movie about themselves, I think, and somehow managed to con 3 actually fairly reputable actors into getting involved in it. So
Yeah.
I don't think there was much thought process other than these are what we think are the glorious parts of FIFA, you know, our glory days of how we started off as this little underdog and then created the greatest football competition in the world, and then, you know, tried to rescue Africa, poor old Africa. You know, we'll bring them into the modern age with our football. And I think that's all they were really trying to do, just glamorize themselves, really.
I mean, it's FIFA, so surely they've got some PR person sitting there thinking this stuff through.
Yeah,
right?
it's like Sepp Blatter
done a
wrote
pretty shitty job for
himself.
years.
Someone signed off on this.
I mean, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But that's so flabbergasting to me. I
Yeah.
just don't understand it.
I think it might just be a case of there isn't anybody in FIFA that's actually that good at their job, and they've just all conned their way to the top.
Yeah.
You know? But
Yeah.
who knows?
Well, they
Who knows?
weren't really held to account by anyone, were they? Because they literally made the rules up for themselves, and
Yeah.
they were based in, you know, Switzerland. They weren't really held to any sort of international law with a lot of the stuff that was going on. So yeah, I mean, I guess when you get to that stage where you probably are, as an organization, just a bit arrogant and you think you can just do whatever. I mean, I saw some of the original titles for the film. One was Men of Legend.
No way.
Yeah, which I think
No way.
is slightly ambitious, and the other was
That's exactly what I mean with this founding father myth. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
insane.
the
How
other
much-
name was the Dream Makers. And it's
Oh my
like,
god.
I mean, they just obviously don't have a clue at all.
They don't seem to know how they are actually perceived. Like,
No.
you don't go up to man in the street and they go, oh, you know, I'm not bothered about the game this weekend. What I'm worried
Yeah.
about is what's happening at the next FIFA extraordinary board meeting.
Yeah,
You know,
how big is the
not gonna
next
happen.
Coca-Cola deal?
Yeah. That's just like all of those deals looked dodgy, didn't they? I mean, like the Uruguay thing is done like very dodgy.
very,
And
very
then
dodgy.
Coca-Cola is basically buys a guy a drink in a bar.
Yeah.
And then Adidas is literally from the back of a boot in a petrol station. It looks like he's buying a load of like fake goods to sell at the market.
He opens up. I
truck,
don't understand
yeah.
why they're trying to show this in the movie. It's like Adidas, okay, they're like this new sportswear brand, going to be the future, and he just opens up the boot of his car. He's like, I've got some tracksuits, I've got some socks.
Yeah, you are well there.
Yeah, like, as a viewer, you're supposed to be like, oh.
It's like he's going £8 each, 2 for a tenner. You know?
Yeah.
The Adidas car boot sale.
yeah. I mean, actually, that probably was one of my favorite things in it, was the like tango ball and just some of that Adidas merchandise, because it did look nice.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that he was peddling it from the back of a car was one thing, but I did
love when the Adidas guy like sort of opened up his briefcase and then he had like the slide of the ball and it's like, I want you to make this ball the star of the next World Cup. And the Blatter looks at it like this on this card. This does look like a ball, I guess.
Yeah. Didn't he have the ball in his car? Like,
Yeah, true. He's got everything else in the trunk. Why not the ball? Like, come on.
There's no space with all the tracksuits.
Yeah, all the boots. Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah,
it's weird. I do think that like Sepp Blatter was probably trying to retcon a few things from his own life as well, you know, or comments that he'd made previously, like because he goes on about like, oh, we got to be thinking about women's football, you know.
Yeah, the women's football thing is very conspicuous, I feel.
He's on record as saying some pretty shady things about women's football.
How to make women's football.
They should wear tighter shorts.
Yeah, how to get more people to watch women's football, get them to wear tighter shorts. Yeah.
And it's like, you know, don't try and make yourself like the big champion of it, Sepp. Come on, no one's going to believe that.
And also the stuff like politically with FIFA, right? It's very, let's leave, like Joe Haviland hangs up the phone. It's like, we will not let apartheid South Africa back into FIFA. When, forgive me if I'm wrong, right? They had them in for years, right? And
there was this pro-apartheid association in South Africa, which FIFA first supported in 1951, and then only later on they were actually, you know, more publicly engaged in the fight against apartheid there. So
was it
clearly
when all
like
the other sports started banning them or something?
Huh?
Was it when all the other sports started banning
exactly,
them?
Exactly. And they very conveniently only showed that later part then when they were beginning to criticize this, but left out the whole other story within this film. I mean,
we had this on like another podcast that we did, but one of the ideas that Stanley Rouse had was that for the 1960s, because this like about how people would deal with South Africa and also Rhodesia, that they would have for 1966 South Africa would be allowed to compete with an all-white team, but then for 1970 they had to have they had to have an all-black team, and that was how they were going to deal with apartheid South Africa back into FIFA.
Yikes!
But let's talk about a bit about like some of the people, like the actors and stuff involved, because obviously. Since
good reaction, by the way. Says it all. It says it all.
Because I like, if you're involved in a project like this afterwards, you have to try and distance yourself. But I have
Tim Roth has done a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, I have the quote from Albertine, like the director, and he hasn't really directed anything else. That
he was like second unit director on something. But yeah, he has not really flourished since.
I'm looking forward to this because I haven't heard any of these comments.
Okay, so he told the Hollywood Reporter in 2015 that he tried to strike a balance between a Disney propaganda film and a Costa Gavras Michael Moore film. but the project ultimately tipped in FIFA's favor. He added, "Now I'm seen as bad as the guy who brought AIDS to Africa or the guy who caused the financial crisis. My name is all over this mess. And apparently I'm a propaganda guy making films for corrupt people." Apparently he's doing a lot in that sentence.
Yeah.
He is public enemy number one after all that, I think.
I mean,
maybe a bit of a hype.
Feeling a bit sorry for himself, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think he's digging the hole even deeper when he's like, "Woe is me for getting all this money."
Exactly. Just don't talk about it. You know, like.
Yeah.
Go on. What were the other ones you found?
I've also got Tim Roth, who said, "This is a role that will have my father turn it in his grave." I enjoyed that one.
He said that he did it for the money, didn't he? Because he had 2 kids in college and he was in a bit of a financial hole. And
I think he said that like on the Jonathan Ross show, but like he was also like making a joke about it. But it's like, you're still like in this like. Corrupt movie.
Apparently Sepp Blatter was really happy with. I read some comments from him earlier, and he was saying, "I really think that we've got some of the same qualities." I mean, the fact that Tim Roth's playing him about 20 years younger than he actually is by the end of the film. You know, I'm sure Sepp Blatter was loving it.
I did think he got like Sepp Blatter's walk down actually. Like
he's quite
in that last bit,
he?
when he's walking out.
That was good.
It actually look a bit like.
But I thought it got better throughout the movie. Which probably doesn't make sense because I don't think that they took it chronologically. Like I don't know at least, but maybe you just get used to it. But
maybe that was the first thing they shot, and he was really having a go at it.
Yeah.
After a few days,
and afterwards he was
I
like,
don't need to try that hard. You know?
But I think Tim Roth did try and say that like he read the script and saw there was like basically a FIFA propaganda film, but he tried to like subtly put in like some of the Blatter corruption stuff into his performance, and I was like,
words. That's how his performance art. The way I walked conveyed my discontent with the plot.
Well, we normally pick an MVP out of our what we call our team sheet, which is the cast, obviously. I've written down for this. These are my in-depth notes. Everyone is average. So I didn't think anyone was particularly bad. Nobody really did much. I
agree. I mean,
I'd struggle to pick a best actor out
who's the
of
guy?
that lot,
Fisher Stevens is in it.
He
plays
weird.
Carl Hirschman, who's one of the early who's like the sidekick to what's his name? George Romay, isn't he, at the beginning?
Is he the guy who goes, we will call it the Federation International?
Yeah. Well,
it's just come
suddenly out of nowhere French.
I did think, right?
Yeah.
The problem with him is he's got like a really dodgy history of doing quite offensive, stereotypical accents as well. Because
Stevens, he's
he's the guy in Short Circuit. He's the guy who plays
brownface.
Yeah, the guy they brownface to play the Indian guy from Short Circuit 1 and 2, and it's like, oh, just have you not learned to?
Stop doing accents.
Stay away.
Film. Just stay away from it. Oh god.
I quite like that first scene where they're all sitting around the table, all these, people from all the different federations, and they not only do they have a slightly dodgy accent speaking in English, but they all just like to say their nationality as well as they introduce themselves. Germany stands with you. Holland is there too. Belgium will support you. And it's like, what was going on there?
Yeah.
It was very awkward.
Also, it's like, we will need a Secretary General.
Yes.
Well, you brought it up, mate.
Yes. You brought it up, man. That's you now.
Yeah, exactly. You've mentioned it. You're doing it.
You smelt it, dealt it.
Oh God.
But then what I was wondering about, like, because usually the narrative of football is that it's working class, right? Even in the ESL talks that are there now, that's kind of the big thing that is supposed to be the story of football that was brought up by the working class. I didn't get why FIFA then, because it seemed like an elitist project all the way through, right? We talked about kind of the mentions that are portrayed at the end, but even at the beginning, it's kind of a very sophisticated meeting with very important people left and right. So I didn't understand why they wouldn't include more of the public appeal of this sport into this story, because that was kind of not existent.
But I probably these men who were like Jules Rimet and the others were probably sort of like landed nobles, right, who had the time to sort of have these meetings, I don't know, and set up this thing, right?
Probably yes.
Oh yeah, because they're just swanning around Europe, having these dinner parties where they're all deciding how to carve up, the biggest, what's going to be the biggest sport. They're certainly not humble men to begin with, I don't think.
No, I mean, they were able to work in an organization that was basically failing for 30 years and all seemed to be doing okay out of it. So they must have had something behind them, I think.
Yeah, until the Uruguayan guy came along with his big sack of gold.
Yeah.
I love that when he's like, okay, he's trying to sell the Uruguay World Cup, and he's like, they've been eating at this sort of cafe thing, and then he goes on to the grass pit and stuff, and he has two arms and 100,000 spectators.
yeah.
Oh gosh. What a peculiar film, isn't it? I mean, I think it's the lowest rated film on IMDb, I think.
Oh yeah.
But I think or out of on IMDb's bottom 100 films, it's the only one. Oh, that's it. It's the only one with a Metacritic score of 1%.
1%.
And
generous.
I think on Rotten Tomatoes it has 0%.
Yeah.
I mean, that is quite something.
Well, you talk about the cast have tried to distance themselves from it. It kind of seems like FIFA have tried to distance themselves from it, because this movie's almost unavailable. We all obviously bought a copy of the DVD and shared it around.
Sepp, if you're listening.
But it's you can't find it. And the one place I could find it was on a couple of American sites like Amazon or whatever, but you had to be in America to watch it. But the reviews were quite funny underneath it. So I'll just read you a couple of them.
Oh, go on.
There was one from Ice Cold Cube. He said, "What an absolute turd of a film. 5 stars." So then you got Anthony gave it 1 star. "Please don't buy this." Paul said, "A truly great work of fiction," which I quite enjoyed. Jake said, 1 star, "Please make it possible to give 0 stars." And then Penny said 5 stars, "Arrived on time, was well packaged and what I expected." So there you go.
You can't argue with Penny, can you?
Did she write this review before she'd seen the film?
Yeah,
I'm
I think
pretty
so.
sure.
Yeah.
Oh god, I mean, to be fair, I'm just waiting for the 4K Ultra HD, remastered version.
Of the
Well, I want to
3D,
see
3D version, you can
Yeah.
be in the boardroom.
Yeah, it's a direct commentary with Sepp Blatter doing it. Just saying how he was like framed by all these people all the way through it. Oh, I really did say that about women. I love them.
This had been such a failure for FIFA. I did think like you could sort of sneakily buy the rights to it off them and do like a Snyder cut, get a few of the actors back, do the updated scenes, and actually turn it into this big corruption expose.
Because I think you could actually, if you wanted to, make it's like the story of FIFA of like the last 10 years. You could make a film of it with the corruption and like the arrests. You could make it quite exciting.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like a political thriller, really, isn't it? I mean, well, it could be, because it is basically politics, but sport politics, not international politics. But everything that happens, all the themes would be exactly the same. I mean, there's no reason why they have to be having conversations about Coca-Cola and tango all the way through it, but obviously that's what they really felt.
I mean, from their perspective, of course they have. Like, it would be in the interest of FIFA to make this movie. That's like the thing.
Which is why did they do it? Like,
that's my question throughout this whole pod. I don't know.
They could have made a film.
Don't know.
They could have not touched any of the more political side of the voting and all that stuff, and they could have done a story about, oh look, these guys set up FIFA, and then there was these World Cups, and it grew, and all people from around the world got into football, and it was a really nice story. But they dabble their feet in this like murky corruption in a way that it seems like they just want to say it was really bad at one point, but now it's all good. Don't worry, it's all good now. Don't come asking questions. It just feels really odd.
Because I think actually, like, the interesting thing with Blatter is like how he rose to power was he did actually see how sort of African countries or other like countries were being ignored by the traditional FIFA establishment, and obviously he kind of used them for his own sort of like power hungry pursuits. But actually, like, it is a thing how like traditionally football looked down on countries which weren't part of South America and Europe, and like we're excluding them from the World Cups and stuff. So you could quite easily, I feel, make a sort of Sepp Blatter underdog story.
A more sympathetic
portrait
of him. Yeah, definitely, because that's all true, isn't it? I mean, they don't need to take quite the side swipes at England, or they have these English people coming out with some really offensive stuff in it. How would they understand the subtleties of a game invented by whites? It's like, it's so like toe curling, it's just so awkward, that stuff. And it's like, well, it was good. It's great that they were able to get countries from all around the world involved in it. They don't really discuss Asia very much, I didn't think. I mean, they do mention that was it 2002 that was in Japan and Korea?
South Korea and Japan.
But they don't really show much of that competition as I remembered it.
No. They talk about politics a bit,
overshadowed by Sepp Blatter's pursuit of re-election.
Well, that was the real story, wasn't it?
And then the geopolitical drama maybe a bit between these two countries, but nothing much more. No.
Who even remembers who won that World Cup? But we all know that Sepp Blatter got re-elected.
Brazil did.
Did they? 2002.
Yeah, against Germany. It's with the first World Cup I watched. I was so sad.
It was Ronaldo's redemption, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because he was sick in the '98 World Cup final.
Oh yeah.
Sick
and then we got to the final, but Michael Ballack couldn't play because he got his second yellow card, and then that was that. So
yeah. The thing I remember about 2002 is I had to go to watch it.
Wake up early.
Yeah, like you were allowed to miss lessons if you were at school watching it.
Really?
But you weren't allowed if it was an England game.
That's England.
But you weren't allowed to not be in lessons otherwise. So that was quite a fun watching experience actually, because it was like 200 kids in the assembly room watching England on a big screen. It was quite fun.
Yeah, that was bizarre, wasn't it? Like some of the matches were at 7 o'clock in the morning. It was really strange, but it was quite a good World Cup. I really liked that one.
Yeah,
is that the one where Rivaldo did that fake, like he'd been.
Yes.
When they kick the wall at him. And then he's like,
kicks it
my
at
face.
his knee.
Yeah.
Yeah, far better topic to talk about than United Passions.
Well, we tried to drag it away. But you pulled us back. Oh,
anything
God.
but
Yeah.
But does anyone have any sort of final words before we, consign this film to the dustbin of history?
Well, I just feel like we mentioned it briefly. There's these kids playing a game that's interspersed throughout this movie, playing on like a dirt pitch, dusty pitch,
unidentified location.
Yeah, and I
could
feel
be
like,
anywhere, which is quite good, I suppose.
Yeah, well, and then obviously the one girl that's playing, scores this golden goal to win the game, and I did feel like, as James has touched on, that was kind of representative of what FIFA were trying to do with this movie. And it was like, hey, don't worry about what happened before this point. It's the golden goal that counts. And look, we've done the one good thing now, so we're good, and I kind of feel like that's what they were trying to do with that whole sequence. And I just didn't really think it
was a bit awkward.
What's the one good thing now, though?
Well, good question. Because I think at the time it was probably going to be...
There's no golden goal, man.
No, I guess it was probably like, hey, we're taking football to new places or whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But then, what was it? Months later, they were raided by the FBI or CIA or whoever.
I mean, I think on the US release, like that weekend, Sepp Blatter was arrested.
Yeah. There we go.
Oh, but it's true because it ends on the note of South Africa being appointed the next.
Exactly, and
those stuff. The
Sepp
World
Blatter
Cup
is pushing football too.
I mean, I sort of wish that this film had come out a few years later, and they could have included like the the ballots for the Qatar World Cup and things like that, because it'd be really interesting to see how there was definitely no backdoor dealings that went on around that.
And 2018 as well.
2018 when England was absolutely robbed.
Yeah,
getting it.
Would be quite comical. Robbed. Like make a sequel, but try to stay on topic.
You've got to make the sequel. United Passions 2, but you've got to carry on the themes from the previous one.
Yeah. I mean, they could do one around UEFA and have Michel Platini in it as well, I suppose, because there was almost as much stuff going on with them at the same time, wasn't there? Because I think he
he was just as dodgy, yeah.
I
mean, they were all wrapped up together.
He was tied in with
Yeah. They've all been tarred with the same brush. But I think even those that are, Gianni Infantino is kind of not completely clear of this either.
Infantino's,
it was very odd. I did find it odd that, like goes what David was saying about that match that was cut throughout the film. That why, I don't know. It's like it felt a bit weird to have the poor girl who'd been stuck in goal the whole match, and then she's just like, oh, I'll go and score then. But it just seemed a bit weird that. And golden goal was also not that popular of a thing even when it came out. I mean,
no, but you did used to play it in the school playground.
I thought they were just sort of so taken aback by her turning into Cristiano Ronaldo for 5 seconds.
they would just carry her around for like 10 minutes, for like 2 hours straight.
Yeah,
I mean, she was a terrible goalkeeper. Whoever decided to put her in net had serious question. I question them really.
That's one thing we found. Every football film we've watched, someone will take a penalty or a free kick, and the goalkeeper dives so
out of the way,
far the wrong way past it. It's like if they just stood still. There's no way the goalkeeper's doing that, and she did do that. So she.
Another thing with Escape to Victory with Sylvester Stallone, that he's just like, he's doing these amazing saves when the ball is like quite clearly just right next to him.
They're all right down the middle of the goal.
Yeah, I must have missed the cut with the amazing saves because that's not the version of Escape to Victory I watched.
It really did made me think of Escape to Victory because in that we found out when we were doing our research on it, Sylvester Stallone thought he was the biggest star. He wanted, despite playing the goalkeeper, to score the winning goal. And so this girl got to live Sylvester Stallone's dream as well. So
yes, she did.
That was probably my
you're
favorite
right.
bit.
It's a little Easter egg for Escape to Victory. I
Could you imagine like maybe an Escape to Victory United Passions crossover with Sepp Blatter and the boys in prison playing for their freedom? But instead of playing, they've got to organize a sponsorship deal with Coca-Cola.
You could mash up quite a few movies there as well. You get a bit of Mean Machine or Longest Yard in there as well.
Yeah, that's
get Vinnie
right.
Jones in there.
They're all Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini are all like in Guantanamo Bay or something.
Yeah,
and they've got to play the guards to escape.
Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely there's a film in there somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm done. I feel like there was some suggestions I saw. These are completely unfounded speculation. That maybe they were just doing some cleaning up of some money, if you would, when they were making this film. It was just a good little, good little device. But that's completely unfounded speculation.
16 million euros lying around that they had to somehow account
for.
But towards the end of the financial year, right? You get rid of it somehow, and then you.
What will we do? Let's make a film. But
if you've got any suggestions of good sports movies, I mean, we won't hold United Passions against you as your bar. But
I mean,
nothing else. You've saved us doing it.
Sorry, go ahead, David.
I was just going to say, if nothing else, you saved us doing it on our own. So thanks for joining us.
Now you can blame it on us.
But I would say the other football film that we covered on this podcast, like Next Goal Wins, is genuinely one of my favorite films. And
I haven't seen it.
No, I haven't either.
I have
want to.
Probably cried every time I've seen it. So
okay, cool. Well, I'm quite a softie, so I'll probably break down. So that'll be fine.
Yeah. So how can guys find your podcast on Twitter and stuff? If people want to listen to you?
Yeah, we're at FOS_pod on Twitter, and we should be available on anywhere you get your podcast. Field of Screens Pod, the sports movie podcast.
The sports movie podcast.
Fantastic.
Did you call it the sports movie in case someone else was like a sports movie podcast?
There was somebody else that had it, which is why I went for the. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, David and James, for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. It's really good fun.
Great.
Far more enjoyable than the film.
Definitely.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, guys. Take care.
Nice one.